In the mid-14th century, a shadow fell over the known world. It was a pestilence so vast, so terrifying it would be remembered for centuries as the Great Mortality. Today, we call it the Black Death. This is the story of the plague that wiped out nearly half of Europe's population, reshaping a continent and altering the course of human history forever. It began, as many things do, with trade. Along the bustling Silk Road, merchant caravans and ships connected the East and the West. But they carried more than just spices and silks. Hidden within their cargo, aboard their ships, were stowaways, black rats, and on these rats were fleas, carrying a deadly bacterium, Yersinia pistis. The first whispers of the plague reached Europe from the Crimean port of Kaffa in 1347. Mongol armies, besieging the city, were ravaged by the disease. In a horrifying act of biological warfare, they catapulted the bodies of their dead soldiers over the city walls. Genoese traders, fleeing the city by sea, unknowingly carried the plague with them. Their ships, ghost ships crewed by the dead and dying, docked in Sicily, Messina, and Marseille. From these ports, the Black Death exploded across Europe. It spread with terrifying speed, moving along trade routes, rivers, and pilgrim paths. From Italy, it swept north into France, Spain, and England. By 1348, it had reached Germany and Scandinavia. By 1351, it had even reached the remote corners of Russia and Greenland. No one was safe. The disease struck the rich and the poor, the young and the old, the pious and the profane. The symptoms were gruesome and swift. Victims would first develop a fever, chills, and fatigue. Then came the telltale sign. Buboes. These were large, painful swellings of the lymph nodes, typically in the groin, armpits, or neck. That would turn black as the tissue died. This is how the plague got its name, the Black Death. Many died within days, sometimes even hours, of the first symptoms appearing. There were other forms, too. The pneumonic plague attacked the lungs, spread by coughing, and was almost always fatal. The septicemic plague infected the bloodstream, causing death so quickly that buboes often didn't have time to form. In a world without germ theory, the cause of the plague was a terrifying mystery. People looked for answers in their faith, in the stars, and in each other. Many believed it was a divine punishment from God, a biblical apocalypse made real. Processions of flagellants marched from town to town, whipping themselves in public displays of penance, hoping to appease an angry God. Their bloody rituals, however, likely helped spread the disease even further. Others looked for scapegoats. Astrologers blamed an unfortunate alignment of planets, but for many, the blame fell on minority groups. Across Europe, Jewish communities were falsely accused of poisoning wells and deliberately spreading the disease. This led to horrific pogroms, where thousands were massacred, burned alive in their homes and synagogues, despite the Pope issuing orders to protect them. It was a dark chapter of fear and hatred born from utter desperation. Physicians of the time were powerless. Their medical knowledge was based on the ancient Greek theory of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. They believed illness was caused by an imbalance of these humors. Treatments were ineffective and often dangerous. They tried bloodletting, lancing the buboes, and applying poultices of herbs, onions, or even dried toads. They advised people to carry sweet-smelling flowers or herbs, cotted posies, to ward off the bad air or miasma, which they thought carried the disease. The iconic plague doctor's mask, with its long beak filled with aromatic herbs, was a desperate attempt to filter out this miasmic air. Societies buckled under the strain. With so many dead and so many more fleeing in terror, the very fabric of daily life unraveled. Fields went unplowed, harvests rotted, and livestock wandered untended. Law and order collapsed in many areas. Parents abandoned their sick children. Husbands and wives left each other to die. As the chronicler Agnolo di Tora wrote of his home, Siena, Agnolo di Tora buried my 5 children with my own hands, and so many died that all believed it was the end of the world. But the world did not end. After 5 long, brutal years, the first wave of the plague finally began to recede around 1351. It left behind a changed Europe. The demographic collapse was staggering. It is estimated that between 30% and 60% of Europe's population perished perhaps as many as 50 million people. The world was emptier, quieter. This massive loss of life, however, had unforeseen consequences that would ignite the dawn of a new era. The rigid feudal system, which had defined medieval society for centuries, was shattered. With a severe labor shortage, the value of the common worker skyrocketed. Peasants and serfs who survived could suddenly demand higher wages and better conditions. Many abandoned their feudal obligations and moved to cities in search of new opportunities. This newfound economic power and social mobility for the lower classes was a revolutionary shift. It triggered peasant revolts and hastened the decline of the feudal aristocracy. The psychological impact was just as profound. The church's inability to stop the plague or even explain it shook people's faith. While many became more devout, others began to question religious authority, paving the way for the skepticism and humanism that would define the Renaissance. Art and literature became obsessed with death and mortality, a theme known as the memento mori. Remember, you must die. The famous danse macabre, or dance of death, depict the skeletons leading people from all walks of life, popes, kings, and peasants alike, to their graves, a stark reminder that death is the great equalizer. The Black Death was not a one-time event. It would return in waves for centuries, though never with the same ferocity as the initial outbreak. It taught humanity a hard lesson about its own vulnerability. It forced a reckoning with science, faith, and the very structure of society. It was an unimaginable catastrophe, a crucible of suffering that forged the modern world from the ashes of the old. The shadow of the Black Death still lingers in our collective memory, a haunting reminder of how a tiny, invisible organism can bring a civilization to its knees. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey into the past insightful, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. See you next time.